Right now, as you are watching this, a weather pattern is forming that has not been seen in decades. Over 300 temperature records are about to shatter across the United States in just the next 4 days. And what comes after that heat wave is something almost nobody is talking about yet. An Arctic blast that could send temperatures plunging 20 degrees below average in a matter of hours. This is not a drill. This is not clickbait. This is the actual data from the GFS, the Euro, and the Canadian models, and they are all agreeing on one thing. The next 2 weeks are going to be a weather roller coaster unlike anything we have experienced this late in March. If you live anywhere in the United States right now, this forecast directly affects you. Here is what I need you to do. Drop a comment right now with your city and state. I will be covering over 270 cities in this forecast, and I want to make sure your area gets the attention it deserves. If you are watching from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, or anywhere in the Southern Plains, stay with me because what is heading your way this weekend could rewrite the record books. And if you are in the Northeast, the Great Lakes, or the Midwest, do not skip ahead because the second half of this forecast contains critical information about a cold blast that is going to hit you harder than anything we have seen since February. Now, here is my promise to you. By the 5-minute mark of this video, you will know exactly when the heat peaks in your region, exactly when the cold front arrives, and exactly how many degrees your temperature is going to drop. No fluff, no filler, just the data you need to protect your family, your property, and your plans for the next 2 weeks. But first, let me tell you what is really driving this insane pattern, because understanding the why will help you understand the when and the where. It all starts with the jet stream. Right now, the jet stream is doing something remarkable. It has taken a massive northward bend over the desert southwest, creating what meteorologists call a ridge. Think of it like a dome of high pressure just sitting over the western half of the country, trapping hot air underneath it like a lid on a pot. Meanwhile, the jet stream is diving southward out of the northwest, sweeping across the Midwest and the Northeast, funneling cooler air into those regions. This is creating a weather battlefield. On one side, you have record-smashing heat. On the other side, you have below-average temperatures and even snow. And right in the middle, where those two air masses collide, that is where the severe weather risk lives. Now let me get specific, because I know you did not click on this video to hear about jet stream theory. You clicked because you want to know what is happening in your city. Let us start with today. Right now, as of this morning, here is what temperatures look like across the country. In the Southwest, it is already extreme. Phoenix, Arizona is sitting at 73 degrees at 7 in the morning. Mesa, Arizona, same thing, 73. Scottsdale is at 68. Tempe, 73. These are low temperatures, folks. The highs today could approach 105 to 106 degrees in parts of southern Arizona. That is not a summer forecast. That is a March forecast. Palm Springs, California is already at 79 degrees this morning. That is the warmest spot in the entire country right now. Los Angeles is at 65, Hollywood 65, Burbank 65, Long Beach 63. San Diego is at 59 with fog rolling in. But do not let that fool you. The heat is building. Now, here is where it gets really interesting, and this is the part most people are going to miss if they stop watching now. The heat dome that is sitting over the Southwest right now is about to expand, and I mean dramatically expand. By Friday, the low temperatures across the Great Plains will be in the 50s and 60s. Let me say that again. The low temperatures, the overnight lows, in the 50s and 60s across Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and parts of Texas. That means the high temperatures Friday afternoon are going to be absolutely staggering. We are talking about highs in the 80s and 90s across Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Wichita, and Kansas City. Right now, Dallas is at 55 degrees this morning. Fort Worth is at 53. By Friday afternoon, both cities could be pushing into the upper 80s. San Antonio is at 51 right now. Houston is at 54. Austin is at 53. These temperatures are going to skyrocket over the next 48 hours. And it does not stop there. By Saturday, the heat dome pushes even further north. Areas as far north as Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is currently sitting at 30 degrees with fog, could reach the low 80s by Saturday afternoon. Think about that for a second. Minneapolis going from 30 degrees to the low 80s in less than 3 days. That is a temperature swing of over 50 degrees. Fargo, North Dakota is at 30 degrees right now with ice fog. Sioux Falls, South Dakota is at 29. Brookings is at 28. These areas could see temperatures 40 to 50 degrees above where they are right now by this weekend. And the records are going to fall like dominoes. Over 300 daily temperature records are expected to be broken between today and Sunday. Some areas could break their daily record highs by 10 to 15 degrees. This is not a normal spring warm-up. This is one of the most historic heat events we have ever seen in the month of March. There is even a possibility that we could break the all-time highest temperature ever recorded in the United States during the month of March. Some areas near Mecca, California could approach 110 degrees. We already tied the record yesterday. Today or tomorrow could be the day it falls. Now, I told you I would deliver the goods by the 5-minute mark, so let me break down the exact timing of this heat wave region by region. For the Southwest, including Phoenix, Tucson, Las Vegas, and the California desert, the heat is already here. Today and Friday are going to be your peak days. Las Vegas is at 66 degrees this morning. Tucson is at 61. By this afternoon, Las Vegas could hit the mid-90s. Phoenix could top 105. The heat will remain extreme through the weekend and will not show any significant relief until the end of next week, if even then. For Texas, the heat ramps up today and peaks Friday through Saturday. Dallas at 55 this morning will push toward the upper 80s by Friday. Houston at 54 will reach the mid-80s. San Antonio at 51 will climb into the low 90s. Austin at 53, same story. Corpus Christi at 52. Laredo at 59. McAllen at 66. Brownsville at 57. The entire state of Texas is going to feel like late May by this weekend. Amarillo is at 58 right now and could reach the low 90s by Saturday. Lubbock at 46 will make a similar jump. For the Great Plains and Midwest, the heat arrives Friday and peaks Saturday. Kansas City is at 56 right now. By Saturday, expect the mid-80s to low 90s. Omaha at 49, same trajectory. Des Moines at 39 will warm dramatically. St. Louis at 55 is going to climb into the upper 80s. Springfield, Missouri at 48. Wichita at 50. Topeka at 41. All of these cities are looking at temperatures 25 to 35 degrees above average by Saturday. For the Southeast, the heat is a bit more gradual but still impressive. Atlanta is at 37 right now. By Saturday, expect the upper 70s to low 80s. Nashville at 46, Memphis at 52, Birmingham at 45, Charlotte at 41. The warm-up will be noticeable, but the real record-breaking heat stays to the west and central part of the country. For the Northeast, and this is important, you are the exception right now. Boston is at 32, New York is at 35, Philadelphia at 37, Washington, D.C. at 38, Hartford at 34, Albany at 31, Portland, Maine at 31, Burlington at 32. You are going to stay below average through the end of this week as the jet stream keeps funneling cooler air into your region. But do not get comfortable with that, because what happens next is going to affect you too. Now here comes the twist. And this is the part of the forecast that could catch a lot of people off guard if they are not paying attention. Starting Sunday, a cold front is going to sweep across the Midwest and the Great Plains. This is not just a minor cool down. This front is going to drop temperatures by 20 to 40 degrees in some areas in less than 24 hours. If you are in Minneapolis and you are enjoying 80-degree weather on Saturday, by Sunday evening you could be back in the 40s. Kansas City could go from the 90s to the 50s. Chicago, which is at 38 right now, might warm up into the 60s by Saturday and then crash back down to the 30s by Monday. And that is just the first cold blast. Here is what most forecasters are not emphasizing enough. There is a second cold blast coming behind the first one. And this one is going to be even stronger. Let me walk you through the timeline. Sunday through Monday, the first cold front pushes through the Midwest and Great Lakes. Temperatures drop 15 to 25 degrees below what they were the day before. The Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and Northeast will feel the brunt of this. Cities like Cleveland, currently at 39, Detroit at 37, Indianapolis at 39, Columbus at 39, Pittsburgh at 39, Buffalo at 35. All of these cities will see temperatures drop and stay cooler through Monday and into Tuesday. But then something interesting happens. Tuesday and Wednesday, the heat tries to build back. The southern plains and south central states see temperatures rebound. We could be back in the 80s and 90s across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. It looks like the heat dome is fighting back, but do not be fooled. Thursday is when the real Arctic blast arrives, and I want you to circle Thursday on your calendar because this is the one that is going to surprise people. This second cold blast is going to be significantly colder than the first. We are talking about temperatures 20 degrees below average for some areas. Widespread 10 to 15 degrees below average from the Great Lakes to the Ohio Valley to the Mid-Atlantic to the Northeast. Wind chills that make it feel like you are back in January. Freezing temperatures pushing all the way from the Rockies through the Central Plains, across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and into the interior Northeast. On Friday morning after this Arctic blast, here is what the temperature map looks like. Freezing temperatures all the way from the Rockies to the Central and North Central Plains. The Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the interior Northeast all waking up to temperatures in the 20s and 30s. Wind chills in the teens and 20s. Meanwhile, right below that line, the southern half of the country is still in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The temperature gradient is going to be absolutely insane. You could drive 300 miles south and gain 40 degrees. Now, I want to make sure you have the specifics for your city, so let me run through this region by region with exact timing. Pacific Northwest. Seattle is at 51 right now with light rain. Portland at 52, Bellingham at 51, Tacoma at 50, Olympia at 50. This region is going to stay wet and cool for the foreseeable future. The Pacific Northwest will get hammered with heavy rain and mountain snow starting Monday through Wednesday. If you are in the Cascades or any mountain areas, expect significant snowfall. Lower elevations, expect persistent rain. No big heat wave for you, but also no Arctic blast. You are in your own weather world up there, Northern California. San Francisco is at 52 with passing clouds. Sacramento at 58, Redding at 54, Chico at 60, Eureka at 42. The heat dome is going to keep you very warm through the weekend. Sacramento could push into the mid-90s by Friday. Even San Francisco, which rarely gets extreme heat, could see temperatures well above normal. By the middle of next week, the heat remains locked in across California. Southern California, Los Angeles at 65, Anaheim at 63, San Bernardino at 64, Riverside at 64, Palm Springs at 79, Bakersfield at 66, Santa Barbara at 64. Temperatures today and Friday will be extreme in the inland valleys. The desert areas near Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley could approach 110 degrees. Coastal areas will be cooler but still well above average. This heat is not going away anytime soon for you. The Mountain West. Denver is at 50 right now with passing clouds, Colorado Springs at 58, Boulder at 66, Salt Lake City at 51, Boise at 47, Billings at 51, Casper at 50, Cheyenne at 53, Missoula at 35. The Rockies are going to see a split. Lower elevations stay warm through the weekend. Higher elevations could see some mountain snow starting Monday as the Pacific Northwest storm system moves through. By Thursday, the Arctic blast reaches you and temperatures plunge. Denver could go from the 60s to the 30s in one day. The Northern Plains, Bismarck at 29, Fargo at 30, Grand Forks at 26, Minot at 39, Pierre at 44, Rapid City at 40. This region is going to experience the most extreme temperature swing in the country. You are in the 20s and 30s right now. By Saturday, you could be in the 70s and 80s. Then by next Thursday and Friday, you crash back down to the 20s and 30s with wind chills in the teens. A temperature swing of 60 degrees or more in less than a week. That is historic. The upper Midwest. Minneapolis at 30, St. Paul at 28, Duluth at 32, Rochester at 35, Eau Claire at 26, Green Bay at 33, Milwaukee at 36, Madison at 34. Saturday is your peak heat day. Expect the 70s to low 80s. Then Sunday evening, the first cold front arrives. Temperatures drop 20 to 30 degrees. A brief warm-up Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the Arctic blast hits Thursday. By Friday morning, wind chills could be in the teens and 20s. Do not put your winter coat away yet. The central Midwest, Chicago at 38, Indianapolis at 39, St. Louis at 55, Springfield, Illinois at 38, Peoria at 41, Des Moines at 39, Davenport at 35, Cedar Rapids at 35. You will warm up nicely by Saturday with temperatures potentially reaching the 70s and low 80s. The first cold front hits Sunday night into Monday. Temperatures drop into the 40s and 50s. Brief warm-up midweek. Then the Arctic blast Thursday drops you back into the 30s and 40s with wind chills much colder. The Ohio Valley, Cincinnati at 38, Columbus at 39, Cleveland at 39, Dayton at 40, Louisville at 44, Lexington at 46, Pittsburgh at 39. This region is on the front line of the battle between warm and cold air. You get a nice warm-up Saturday with temps in the 60s and 70s. Then Sunday and Monday, the cold front drops you back to the 40s. A brief rebound Tuesday and Wednesday. Then Thursday's Arctic blast could bring wind chills into the 20s and freezing temperatures by Friday morning. The Northeast. New York at 35, Boston at 32, Philadelphia at 37, Washington, D.C. at 38, Hartford at 34, Albany at 31, Providence at 31, Burlington at 32, Portland, Maine at 31, Syracuse at 33 with light snow, Buffalo at 35, Rochester at 35. You are going to stay cooler than the rest of the country through this entire period. The jet stream keeps feeding you below average temperatures. This weekend you might see some moderate warming, but nothing like what the plains and Midwest will experience. The first cold front Sunday night into Monday will bring some snow showers and freezing rain to parts of New England. The storm system could produce heavy snow across northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the upper peninsula of Michigan Saturday into Sunday, with that transitioning to freezing rain and sleet across the Northeast by Monday morning. By the way, if you are finding this forecast useful, drop a comment with your city and state. I want to know where my viewers are watching from so I can focus on your areas in future updates. And do not miss the next section because I am about to break down the severe weather risk that nobody is talking about. The Mid-Atlantic, Baltimore at 37, Annapolis at 39, Richmond at 38, Norfolk at 41, Virginia Beach at 41, Wilmington, Delaware at 38, Dover at 37, Chesapeake at 42. This region sees a gradual warm-up through the weekend. By Saturday and Sunday, you could be in the 60s to low 70s, but Monday brings the cold front and temperatures drop back to the 40s and 50s. The Arctic blast Thursday could drop you into the 30s with wind chills in the 20s. The Southeast, Atlanta at 37, Charlotte at 41, Raleigh at 44, Nashville at 46, Knoxville at 41, Chattanooga at 38, Charleston at 46, Savannah at 47, Jacksonville at 51, Columbia, South Carolina at 42, Macon at 37, Augusta at 43, Birmingham at 45, Montgomery at 42. This region warms nicely through the weekend. Expect the 70s and even low 80s by Saturday. The cold fronts will affect you less than the northern states, but you will still feel a noticeable cool down Monday and Tuesday. The big Arctic blast Thursday might bring you back to the 50s and 40s briefly before warming back up. And here's the thing about the Southeast that has me watching closely. Do not plant your gardens yet. I know it is tempting with these warm temperatures, but we are going to have frost and freeze events coming back as we go through the end of March and into early April. If you plant now and we get a hard freeze next weekend, you are going to lose everything. Wait until at least mid-April to be safe. Now let me talk about Florida because Florida is kind of in its own category with this pattern. Miami is at 65 with passing clouds, Fort Lauderdale at 64, West Palm Beach at 60, Tampa at 56, Orlando at 55, Jacksonville at 51, Tallahassee at 44, Key West at 70, Pensacola at 46. For the most part, Florida stays mild to warm through this entire period. Northern Florida will feel some of the cooler air from the cold fronts, but southern Florida remains comfortable. The biggest story for Florida is the dry conditions. No significant rain is expected for most of the state over the next week. The Gulf Coast, New Orleans at 53, Baton Rouge at 44, Biloxi at 48, Mobile at 46, Lake Charles at 55, Beaumont at 51, Galveston at 61. This region warms up quickly through the weekend. By Saturday, expect the mid-70s to low 80s. The cold fronts will bring some cooler air early next week, but the more significant Arctic blast Thursday could drop overnight temperatures into the 40s, which is unusual for late March in the Gulf states. Texas. I already covered the major cities, but let me add more detail. El Paso is at 52 right now, Midland at 53, Odessa at 53, Amarillo at 58, Lubbock at 46, Abilene at 56, Waco at 55, Temple at 54, Killeen at 53, Tyler at 52, Longview at 52, Texarkana at 55, Corpus Christi at 52, Victoria at 46, These cities are all going to see temperatures climb into the 80s and 90s by this weekend. But here is the critical detail for Texas. By the middle of next week, after the first cold front passes, temperatures could surge back even higher. We could see parts of North Texas and Oklahoma hit the low 100s. Combined with dry conditions and strong winds, this creates a serious fire threat. If you are in rural Texas or Oklahoma, this is a fire weather situation you need to take seriously. Now let me pivot to something that is absolutely critical, and this is what I was saving for this part of the forecast. The sudden stratospheric warming event. Most weather channels are not talking about this yet, but there is a sudden stratospheric warming event that has split the polar vortex into two pieces. Now, I know that sounds technical, but here's what it means for you in plain English. When the polar vortex splits, it means the cold air that is normally locked up at the North Pole gets released. It starts flowing southward, and it does not arrive at ground level immediately. It takes about 7 to 10 days for the effects to travel from the stratosphere down to where we live. And here is why this matters so much for the next few weeks. When you look at the upper atmosphere data right now, you can see the cooler anomaly already passing through. This is not something the models are guessing about. This is observed data. The split has already happened. The cold air is already on its way down. The only question is exactly how far south it pushes and how intense it gets when it arrives at ground level. Multiple model systems are confirming this trend. The GFS shows it, the European model shows it, the Canadian model shows it. When all three major global models agree on a pattern, that gives us very high confidence that it is going to happen. The details might shift around a little bit. One model might show the cold a degree or two warmer than another. One model might time the arrival 6 hours earlier or later than another. But the overall pattern is locked in. Cold blasts are coming. Multiple cold blasts through the end of March and into April. So here is the timeline. The stratospheric warming event is happening right now. The effects at ground level start showing up in the models around the end of next week. And as we go into the first half of April, this cold air is going to continuously push southward. This means April is not going to be a smooth transition into spring. Instead, we are going to be stuck in this pattern of jackets on, jackets off, warm for a few days, then cold for a few days. Rinse and repeat all through the first half of April and maybe even longer. The data from the GFS, the Euro, and the Canadian models all confirm this trend. The cold blasts are going to keep coming, the heat dome is going to keep trying to fight back. And the result is going to be a very active, very volatile weather pattern that keeps us guessing week after week. Now let me talk about severe weather, because this temperature battle is going to fuel some storms. For this Sunday, there is a low risk of isolated severe weather across parts of Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. The instability is lackluster for this time of year, so do not expect anything major, maybe isolated hail or a wind event. The severe weather risk is probably around 10 to 20%, but here is the time frame I am watching very closely. The end of March, roughly Wednesday through Thursday of next week, there is a storm system that could bring severe weather to the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and possibly the mid-Mississippi River Valley. Right now, the odds of significant severe weather from this system are maybe 10%. But the odds of at least some isolated to scattered severe weather are around 40%. If the trough digs further south than currently modeled, this could be upgraded to a more significant event. I will keep you updated on this. And then there is April. Once we get into April, I think things really kick into gear. The combination of strong temperature gradients, the split polar vortex, and increasing moisture from the Gulf of Mexico is going to create a very active, severe weather month. I am specifically watching the April 2nd through 5th time frame for possibly the first major severe weather outbreak of the spring season. If you live anywhere in Tornado Alley, from Texas up through Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and into the Ohio Valley, April is going to demand your attention. Now let me also address the snow situation, because yes, we are still talking about snow in late March and potentially early April. For this Saturday into Sunday, the storm system crossing the Great Lakes is going to bring heavy snow to northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the upper peninsula of Michigan. If you are in Marquette, currently at 30 degrees, or Escanaba at 30, or Iron Mountain at 29, you are looking at another round of significant snowfall. The upper peninsula has already been buried this winter. This is just another layer on top. By Sunday evening into Monday morning, that system transitions across the Northeast, bringing freezing rain and sleet across interior New England. Heavy snow is possible across upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. If you are in Pittsfield, Massachusetts at 26 degrees, or Concord, New Hampshire at 27, or Burlington, Vermont at 32, prepare for winter weather conditions early next week. The Euro Ensemble model, which blends 51 different model runs together, shows a strong snow signal continuing for the Northeast through the end of March. We are talking about potentially over a foot of additional snow in favored locations across interior New England and the higher elevations. Winter is not done yet for these areas, and here is the thing that the data is screaming at us right now. The cold air source sitting in Canada is enormous. It is bottled up to the north right now, but any disruption in the jet stream pattern could send it flooding southward. The models show this cold pool is much colder than normal for late March. So when these cold blasts come through, they have the potential to be shockingly cold. We are not talking about normal late March cooldowns. We are talking about temperatures that would be more appropriate for mid-February. Let me now go through some additional cities that I have not covered yet because I promised you over 270 locations and I meant it. In the Carolinas, Asheville at 31, Greenville, South Carolina at 40, Spartanburg at 43, Fayetteville, North Carolina at 39, Wilmington, North Carolina at 48, Myrtle Beach at 44, Florence at 41. These areas warm up nicely by the weekend, potentially reaching the 70s. But the end-of-month cold blast could bring frost concerns. Do not plant those tomatoes yet. In Virginia, Virginia Beach at 41, Norfolk at 41, Richmond at 38, Charlottesville at 37, Lynchburg at 37, Roanoke at 36, Harrisonburg at 38, Staunton at 42, Fredericksburg at 41. Winchester is showing in the upper 30s. The warm-up Saturday could push you into the 60s. But Monday brings cooler air, and Thursday's Arctic blast could give you freezing temperatures by Friday morning in Tennessee. Nashville at 46, Memphis at 52, Knoxville at 41, Chattanooga at 38, Clarksville at 46, Murfreesboro at 45, Cookeville at 41, Kingsport at 37. The warm-up pushes Memphis into the low 80s by Saturday. Nashville reaches the upper 70s. Then the roller coaster begins with cool downs and warm-ups alternating through the rest of the month. In Kentucky, Louisville at 44, Lexington at 46, Bowling Green at 43, Hopkinsville at 47, Paducah at 46, Owensboro at 44. These cities warm up into the 70s by Saturday. The first cold front drops you back to the 50s on Monday. The Arctic blast Thursday could push overnight lows into the 20s. In Indiana, Indianapolis at 39, Fort Wayne at 32, South Bend at 32, Terre Haute at 41, Bloomington at 43, Evansville at 44, Muncie at 42. This state is right in the transition zone. Warm Saturday in the 70s, cold Monday in the 40s, warm again Wednesday, Arctic cold Friday. The temperature swings here will be dramatic. In Michigan, Detroit at 37, Grand Rapids at 32 with ice fog, Lansing at 33, Kalamazoo at 34, Flint at 34, Saginaw at 36, Traverse City at 34, Marquette at 30. The Upper Peninsula is looking at more snow this weekend. Lower Michigan warms into the 50s and 60s by Saturday. But then the cold returns, and for Upper Michigan, winter is absolutely not over. In Wisconsin, Milwaukee at 36, Madison at 34, Green Bay at 33, Appleton at 36, Eau Claire at 26, Wausau at 27, La Crosse at 30, Sheboygan at 33. Saturday is your warm day, potentially the 70s. Then Sunday night, the cold front arrives and temperatures crash. Thursday's Arctic blast could bring wind chills into the teens. In Iowa, Des Moines at 39, Cedar Rapids at 35, Davenport at 35, Sioux City at 30, Iowa City at 43, Waterloo at 33, Dubuque at 36, same pattern. Big warm-up Saturday, cold front Sunday, brief warm-up midweek, Arctic blast Thursday in Missouri, St. Louis at 55, Kansas City at 56, Springfield at 48, Columbia at 51, Jefferson City at 47, Joplin at 53, St. Joseph at 51, Sedalia at 60. Missouri is already feeling the warm-up. By Saturday, temperatures could reach the upper 80s across the entire state. Then the cold front brings a 20 to 30 degree drop Sunday night. In Kansas, Wichita at 50, Topeka at 41, Manhattan at 41, Lawrence at 39, Salina at 40, Dodge City at 45, Garden City at 50, Hayes at 44. Kansas is going to see some of the most extreme heat this weekend, with temperatures potentially reaching the mid-90s. By next Thursday, you could be back in the 40s with wind chills in the 20s. That is a 50-degree drop. In Nebraska, Omaha at 49, Lincoln at 41, Grand Island at 40, North Platte at 31, Kearney at 43, Scottsbluff at 40. The western part of the state stays cooler, but the eastern side warms dramatically by Saturday. Expect the same roller coaster pattern through the rest of the month. In Oklahoma, Oklahoma City at 46, Tulsa at 54, Norman is near Oklahoma City temperatures, Lawton area near 50, Enid at 51, Stillwater at 47. Oklahoma is going to get blasted with heat this weekend. Temperatures in the 90s are likely Saturday. Combined with dry conditions and strong winds next week, fire weather is a serious concern. Take this seriously if you live in rural areas in Arkansas. Little Rock at 48, Fort Smith at 47, Fayetteville at 50, Bentonville at 53, Jonesboro area in the upper 40s, Hot Springs area in the low 50s, Texarkana at 55. Similar to Oklahoma and Texas, expect major warming this weekend with temperatures in the 80s. The cold fronts will bring brief cool downs, but the pattern stays warm overall until the Arctic blast at the end of next week. In Alabama, Birmingham at 45, Huntsville at 45, Montgomery at 42, Mobile at 46, Tuscaloosa at 41, Dothan at 43, Auburn at 46. Warm up into the 70s by Saturday. Minor cool downs early next week. The Arctic blast will be felt, but not as severely as further north. In Mississippi, Jackson at 47, Hattiesburg at 41, Biloxi at 48, Tupelo at 52, Gulfport at 42, Oxford at 50. Similar to Alabama, expect a nice warm-up this weekend with 70s to low 80s. Cold fronts bring brief cool downs. In Louisiana, New Orleans at 53, Baton Rouge at 44, Shreveport at 54, Lafayette at 51, Lake Charles at 55, Monroe area in the upper 40s. The Bayou State heats up nicely this weekend. 80s are likely by Saturday. Cold fronts bring the only relief. In Georgia, Atlanta at 37, Savannah at 47, Augusta at 43, Macon at 37, Columbus at 39, Athens at 32, Valdosta at 45, Gainesville at 40, Dalton at 43, Toccoa at 43. The Peach State warms up through the weekend into the upper 70s. Atlanta could see its first 80-degree day of the season by Saturday or Sunday, but I want you in the Atlanta metro area to pay attention to what happens next Thursday and Friday. That Arctic blast is going to push cold air much further south than the first front. We could see overnight lows dropping into the low 30s across North Georgia. If you have already planted your spring garden, you might want to have frost cloth ready. And speaking of Georgia, let me take a moment to talk about something that a lot of people overlook during these rapid temperature swings: your health. When temperatures jump from the 30s to the 80s in a couple of days, your body has not had time to acclimate to the heat. This is especially important for those of you over 45. You are more susceptible to heat-related illness when you have been living in cool temperatures and suddenly get thrown into summer-like heat. Drink more water than you think you need. Take breaks if you are working outdoors. Wear light-colored, loose-fitting clothing. And watch for signs of heat exhaustion, things like heavy sweating, weakness, nausea, dizziness, and headache. This is serious. Every year, people end up in the emergency room during these early-season heat waves because their bodies are not ready for it. Now let me get back to the city-by-city breakdown because I have more ground to cover. In the Dakotas, Sioux Falls at 29, Rapid City at 40, Aberdeen at 30 with ice fog, Pierre at 44, Bismarck at 29, Fargo at 30, Grand Forks at 26, Minot at 39. This is ground zero for the temperature swing from the 20s and 30s today to potentially the 80s by Saturday, then back down to the 20s and 30s by next Friday. The temperature swing could exceed 60 degrees in less than a week. In Montana, Billings at 51, Great Falls at 61, Missoula at 35, Helena at 38, Bozeman at 39, Butte at 31, Kalispell at 40. Montana stays on the cooler side relative to the plains but still sees above-average warmth through the weekend. The Arctic blast brings significant cold back by the end of next week. In Wyoming, Casper at 50, Cheyenne at 53, Jackson at 25, Riverton at 49, Sheridan area temperatures are in the 40s, Rock Springs at 43. The mountains hills keep things cooler, but the valleys warm up. Expect mountain snow next week as the Pacific Northwest storm moves through. In Colorado, Denver at 50, Colorado Springs at 58, Fort Collins at 46, Boulder at 66, Pueblo at 40, Grand Junction at 47, Durango at 27, Aspen at 31. Denver could see the 60s to low 70s this weekend. Then by the end of next week, the Arctic blast drops you back to the 30s and possibly 20s overnight. In New Mexico, Albuquerque at 46, Las Cruces at 50, Santa Fe at 43, Roswell at 46. The high desert stays warm through this period with less dramatic swings than the plain states. In Utah, Salt Lake City at 51, Provo at 51, Ogden at 47, St. George at 54, Moab at 45, Park City area in the 30s and 40s. Salt Lake warms into the 60s by the weekend. St. George could approach the 80s. The Arctic blast brings a significant cool down by the end of next week. In Nevada, Las Vegas at 66, Reno at 45. Henderson area similar to Las Vegas. Las Vegas stays warm and dry through this entire period. Reno sees more variability with the jet stream. In Idaho, Boise at 47, Idaho Falls at 35, Pocatello at 41, Twin Falls area in the mid-40s, Coeur d'Alene at 56. Boise warms into the 60s by the weekend. Mountain areas stay cooler with possible snow next week. In Washington State, beyond Seattle, Spokane at 56, Yakima at 59, Wenatchee at 52, Pullman at 51, Walla Walla at 60. Eastern Washington is warmer and drier than the west side, but the Pacific Northwest storm system next week will affect the entire state. In Oregon, beyond Portland, Eugene at 43, Bend at 41, Medford at 44, Salem at 50, Corvallis at 43, Ashland in the upper 40s. The Willamette Valley stays wet. Eastern Oregon is drier and warmer. Bend and the Central Oregon area will see a mix of conditions through the next 2 weeks. Now, I want to revisit something critical that I mentioned earlier because I want to make sure it sinks in. The pattern we are entering is not just a one-week event. The data from the GFS, the Euro, and the Canadian model all agree. This roller coaster pattern of extreme warmth followed by cold blasts is going to continue through the end of March and into the first half of April, maybe even longer. The sudden stratospheric warming event that has split the polar vortex is the engine driving this pattern, and it is not going away anytime soon. What this means practically is that you should not assume spring has arrived just because you have a few warm days. You should not plant your garden. You should not put away your winter clothes. You should not disconnect your space heaters or winterize your outdoor equipment just yet, because the cold is coming back. Multiple times, here is the summary timeline for the next 2 weeks. Today through Saturday, historic heat wave across the western two-thirds of the country, over 300 temperature records expected to break. Southwest approaches all-time March records with temperatures near 110. Great Plains and Midwest see temperatures 25 to 35 degrees above average. Northeast remains cooler but gradually warms Sunday through Monday. First cold front sweeps across the Midwest and Northeast. Temperatures drop 20 to 40 degrees in some areas. Snow and freezing rain possible across the upper Midwest and New England. Brief but sharp cool down, Tuesday through Wednesday. Heat tries to rebuild across the southern plains and south-central states. Temperatures rebound into the 80s and 90s. Brief warm-up for the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Fire weather concerns in Texas and Oklahoma with high temperatures, dry conditions, and strong winds. Thursday through Saturday of next week, the Arctic blast arrives. This is the big one. Temperatures plunge 20 degrees below average across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. Freezing temperatures push as far south as the Central Plains. Wind chills make it feel like January. The southern half of the country stays warm, creating an extreme temperature gradient. End of March into early April. The roller coaster continues. Cold blasts keep coming from the split polar vortex. April is not going to be a smooth spring. Expect continued volatility. The first major severe weather outbreak could occur as early as April 2nd through 5th. Active severe weather pattern expected throughout April. Now, before I wrap up, I want to highlight something that the data is showing for the snow lovers and the winter weather watchers. The Euro Ensemble model shows a strong snow signal continuing for the Northeast and the upper Great Lakes through the end of March and possibly into early April. We are talking about additional snowfall totals that could exceed a foot in favored locations. The higher elevations of New England, the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains, and the White Mountains are all in play. and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is going to continue to get hammered. For those of you in the Pacific Northwest, the mountain snowpack is going to get a nice boost next week as the storm systems roll through. This is good news for water resources and ski resorts, but it also means travel through mountain passes could be hazardous. Be prepared. And for the fire weather concerns, if you live in rural Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, or the Southwest, next week could bring dangerous fire weather conditions. The combination of extreme heat, low humidity, and strong winds is a recipe for fast-moving wildfires. Make sure your defensible space is clear. Have an evacuation plan. Stay informed. Here is what I need from you. First, drop a comment with your city and state. I read every single comment and I use your locations to focus my forecasts. Second, if you found this forecast useful, share it with someone in your area who needs to know what is coming. This is the kind of weather pattern where preparation makes the difference. Now, before I let you go, let me give you a quick recap of the key dates you need to have marked on your calendar. This is the part you might want to screenshot or write down. Today and Friday. Peak heat across the Southwest and California. Possible all-time March temperature record near Mecca, California, approaching 110 degrees. Record highs falling across Texas, Oklahoma, and the Southern Plains. Dallas pushing toward the upper 80s. Houston into the mid-80s. Phoenix topping 105 Saturday. The heat dome peaks across the Great Plains and Midwest. Areas from Texas to Minnesota could see temperatures 25 to 35 degrees above average. Over 300 daily temperature records expected to fall between today and Sunday. This is the day Minneapolis could hit the 80s after starting the week in the 20s. Sunday. The first cold front sweeps through the Midwest. Temperatures crash 20 to 40 degrees behind the front. Snow and winter weather possible across the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, northern Minnesota, and northern Wisconsin. Heavy snow expected in these areas. Monday. The cold front reaches the northeast. Freezing rain and sleet possible across interior New England. Heavy snow for the higher elevations of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Temperatures drop significantly across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. Wind chills make it feel like the 20s across the northern tier, Tuesday and Wednesday. A brief warm rebound across the southern plains. Temperatures surge back into the 80s and 90s across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. This is when fire weather becomes a serious concern. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest gets hammered with heavy rain and mountain snow. Thursday. Circle this date. The Arctic blast arrives. This is the strongest cold event in the entire pattern. Temperatures plunge 20 degrees below average across a wide area from the Great Lakes to the Ohio Valley to the Mid-Atlantic to the Northeast. Freezing temperatures push as far south as the Central Plains. Wind chills drop into the teens and 20s. Friday and Saturday of next week, the Arctic blast continues to push south and east. Temperatures remain well below average across the northern half of the country. Meanwhile, the southern half stays warm, creating one of the most extreme north-south temperature splits we have seen this late in March, end of March into early April. The pattern does not let up. Another cold blast is showing up in the models right at the beginning of April. The sudden stratospheric warming event continues to feed cold air southward. April is not going to feel like spring across much of the country. April 2nd through 5th. This is the earliest window I am watching for a potential major severe weather outbreak. The combination of strong temperature gradients, increasing Gulf moisture, and an active jet stream could produce the first significant tornado outbreak of the spring season. That is your complete timeline. Now let me give you the final word on this pattern and why it matters. And here is what is coming next. I am going to be releasing another detailed forecast in the next couple of days, specifically focused on the Arctic blast that arrives Thursday of next week. I will have updated model data, more specific timing, and exact temperature forecasts for your city. That video is going to be critical because the models are still refining exactly how far south this cold pushes and how long it lasts. If the cold goes further south than currently modeled, we could be talking about freeze warnings as far south as the Gulf Coast. That would be historic for late March. Do not miss that update. The weather over the next 2 weeks is going to test our patience. One day you are in shorts, the next day you are reaching for your winter coat. But knowledge is your best tool. When you know what is coming, you can prepare. When you can prepare, you can protect what matters. Now, I know I have been throwing a lot of data at you, so let me organize this one more time in a way that is easy to remember. If you live west of the Rockies, this weekend is all about heat. Extreme, record-breaking, potentially historic heat. Protect yourself, stay hydrated, check on elderly neighbors, keep pets indoors during the hottest parts of the day. Do not leave children or animals in cars even for a minute. These temperatures are dangerous. If you live in the Great Plains or the Midwest, you are going to experience both extremes. Enjoy the warm weather this weekend, but be ready for the cold front Sunday night. And especially be ready for the Arctic blast arriving Thursday. Have your winter clothes accessible. If you have outdoor plants, be prepared to cover them or bring them inside. If you live in the Northeast or the Great Lakes region, you are going to be dealing with below-average temperatures, possible snow, freezing rain, and winter weather advisories through most of this period. The warm-up Saturday will feel nice, but it is temporary. The cold is coming back, and it is coming back hard. If you live in the Southeast or along the Gulf Coast, you have the mildest version of this pattern. Enjoy the warm weather, but do not get lulled into thinking spring is fully here. Frost and freeze events are still possible through the end of March and into early April. Hold off on planting. If you live in Florida, you are the lucky ones this time around. Mild to warm temperatures, mostly dry conditions, and minimal impact from the cold fronts. Southern Florida barely notices any of this. Northern Florida gets a slight cool down, but nothing dramatic. Now let me circle back to the severe weather discussion because I think this deserves more attention. The current weather pattern is characterized by what we call a zonal flow. That means the jet stream is moving mostly west to east without big dips or ridges. When the flow is zonal, we typically do not get major storm systems over the lower 48. Most of the big storm energy tracks through Canada. That is exactly what the models are showing for the next few days. But here is the catch. When you have extreme temperature contrasts like what we are about to see, with the southern plains in the 90s and the northern plains crashing into the 30s, that creates an enormous amount of potential energy in the atmosphere. All it takes is one disturbance to tap into that energy, and you have a significant, severe weather event. Right now, the models are keeping the main storm track through Canada, but there are hints, subtle hints in the data that around Wednesday and Thursday of next week, a storm system could dip far enough south to interact with the warm, moist air surging northward from the Gulf of Mexico. If that happens, we could see a significant severe weather event across the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and possibly the mid-Mississippi River Valley. I want to be clear, this is not a certainty. Right now, I would put the odds at maybe 30 to 40% for some level of severe weather from this system. But the ingredients are there, the moisture is there, the instability is there, the wind shear will be there. All we need is the trigger, which is that storm system dipping south from Canada. If it does, we could be talking about large hail, damaging winds, and possibly tornadoes across parts of the central United States around late next week. And then once we cross into April, the pattern becomes much more favorable for severe weather. The temperature contrasts intensify, the Gulf moisture increases, and the jet stream becomes more active with deeper troughs and stronger storm systems. I am telling you right now, April is going to be an active month. If you live anywhere in the traditional severe weather corridor from Texas northward through Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and into the Tennessee and Ohio valleys, you need to have your severe weather plan ready to go. Make sure you have a way to receive weather warnings, whether that is a weather radio, a smartphone app, or a reliable notification system. Make sure your family knows where to go in your home during a tornado warning. Make sure you have supplies ready. Flashlights, batteries, water, first aid kit, phone chargers. This is not about being scared. This is about being smart and being prepared. Now let me add a few more cities that I want to make sure I cover for those of you who have been scrolling through wondering when I would get to your area. In West Virginia, Charleston at 35, Morgantown at 41, Huntington at 42, Wheeling at 39, Parkersburg area in the upper 30s, Clarksburg at 40. West Virginia is going to see a modest warm-up this weekend into the 50s and 60s, but the terrain keeps things cooler than the surrounding lowlands. The cold fronts will bring you back to the 30s quickly. Snow is possible in the higher elevations of the Allegheny Mountains with both storm systems. In Connecticut, Hartford at 34, New Haven at 34, Bridgeport at 34, Stamford at 33, Danbury at 32, Waterbury at 29, Temperatures are running below average right now. A modest warm-up is possible this weekend, but the Northeast stays cooler than the rest of the country. Early next week could bring rain switching to snow showers in Massachusetts. Boston at 32, Worcester at 26, Springfield at 31, Cambridge at 32, Plymouth at 30, Cape Cod locations like Barnstable at 33, Provincetown at 34, and Falmouth at 34. The Cape is going to stay chilly with onshore flow keeping temperatures suppressed. Boston might touch the 50s this weekend before dropping back. Worcester could see some snow showers early next week. In New Hampshire, Manchester at 30, Nashua at 30, Concord at 27, Portsmouth at 32, Berlin at 26. The Granite State is in winter mode and staying there. Snow is possible this weekend and early next week. Higher elevations in the White Mountains are looking at potentially significant snowfall. In Vermont, Burlington at 32, Montpelier at 26, Rutland at 28, Brattleboro at 28. The Green Mountain State is cold and getting colder in spots. Heavy snow is possible across the higher elevations this weekend and into early next week. If you are skiing, the conditions are actually going to be pretty good. In Maine, Portland at 31, Bangor at 27, Augusta at 27, Lewiston at 28 with light snow, Presque Isle at 21, Calais at 25, Lubec at 25. Maine is the coldest corner of the country east of the Rockies right now. Presque Isle at 21 degrees in mid-March tells you everything you need to know about how this winter has been hanging on in northern New England. More snow is coming this weekend and early next week. In Rhode Island, Providence at 31, Newport at 34, Warwick at 31, Narragansett at 34. Small state but still affected by the same pattern. Modest warm-up Saturday, then cooler temperatures return early next week. In Delaware, Wilmington at 38, Dover at 37, Rehoboth Beach at 37. Delaware sees a nice warm-up into the 50s and 60s this weekend before the cold returns. In Maryland, beyond Baltimore, Annapolis at 39, Frederick at 37, Hagerstown at 37. Ocean City area in the upper 30s, Cumberland at 37. The western mountains of Maryland could see some snow from the weekend system. The eastern shore stays milder in Pennsylvania beyond Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Allentown at 33, Scranton at 31, Harrisburg at 35, Erie at 37, State College at 34, Wilkes-Barre at 31, Reading at 35, Lancaster at 33, York at 35, Stroudsburg at 31. The Poconos could see snow from the weekend system. Erie stays chilly with lake influence. The rest of the state sees a brief warm-up Saturday before cooling down. In New Jersey, Newark at 36, Trenton at 34, Atlantic City at 36, Paterson at 36, Jersey City at 36, Edison at 36. New Jersey warms into the 50s this weekend. Brief, then cooler air returns. The shore areas stay cooler than inland locations. In New York, beyond New York City. Albany at 31, Syracuse at 33 with light snow, Rochester at 35, Buffalo at 35, Binghamton at 28, Utica at 31, Ithaca at 30 with light snow, Plattsburgh at 30, Saratoga Springs at 32, Cooperstown at 31. Upstate New York is in the bullseye for potential winter weather this weekend and early next week. Lake effect and mountain-enhanced snow is possible. The Adirondacks could see significant accumulation. Buffalo and Rochester might see some lake-enhanced precipitation as well. In Alaska, for those of you watching from the last frontier, Anchorage at 8 degrees, Fairbanks at -28, Juneau at 27 with light snow, Utqiagvik at -29, Nome at -17, Kodiak at 16. Alaska is in deep winter still, which is normal for March, but the extreme cold in Fairbanks and the interior is noteworthy. These temperatures are colder than normal even for Alaska. In Hawaii, Honolulu at 71, Hilo at 69, Maui at 69 to 70, Kona at 75. Hawaii is in its own world weather-wise, mild, tropical, with occasional trade wind showers, no connection to the continental pattern at all. Now let me address something that I have been getting a lot of questions about. People want to know, is this weather pattern related to climate change? Is this normal? Should we be worried? Here is what I will say. Temperature swings like this do happen in March. The battle between winter and spring is a normal part of the seasonal transition. What makes this particular event unusual is the magnitude. Having over 300 daily temperature records fall in a 4-day period is rare. Having temperatures approach 110 degrees in March is extremely rare. Having the polar vortex split and send repeated Arctic blasts into the United States through mid-April is noteworthy. Whether any individual event can be attributed to climate change is a complex scientific question that goes beyond weather forecasting. What I can tell you is that the data is clear about what is coming in the next 2 weeks, and that is what we need to focus on right now. Preparation, not debate. I also want to address the question of how reliable these forecasts are at different time ranges. For the next 3 to 4 days, the forecast confidence is very high. We know the heat dome is here. We know the records are going to fall. We know the first cold front arrives Sunday. For the 5 to 7 day range, which covers the first cold blast and the brief warm-up midweek, confidence is moderate to high. The pattern is well established and the models agree on the overall evolution. For the 8 to 14 day range, which covers the Arctic blast arriving Thursday and the continued pattern into early April, confidence is moderate. We know the cold is coming because the stratospheric data confirms it. But the exact timing, exact temperatures, and exact extent of the cold could shift by a day or two and a few degrees in either direction. That is why I will be doing a follow-up video with updated data. The closer we get, the more precise the forecast becomes. Now, I want to give you a final thought on this pattern and why it matters beyond just the next 2 weeks. What we are witnessing is a classic battle between winter and spring. Every year this battle happens, but this year it is more intense than usual. The heat dome building over the southwest is exceptionally strong for March. The cold air reservoir in Canada is exceptionally deep for this time of year, and the sudden stratospheric warming event that split the polar vortex is adding extra ammunition to the cold side. This means that even as the calendar says spring, the atmosphere is not cooperating. We are going to be dealing with temperature extremes, sudden shifts, and potentially dangerous weather through at least mid-April. This is not a normal transition. This is a weather pattern that demands attention and respect. For farmers and gardeners across the country, the message is clear. Be patient. I know the warm days are tempting. I know you want to get your seeds in the ground, but one hard freeze can destroy an entire planting. Wait until we get through this volatile pattern. Wait until the data shows the cold blasts are done. For most of the country, that probably means waiting until mid to late April at the earliest. For anyone with outdoor events planned over the next 2 weeks, have a backup plan. The weather is going to change rapidly and dramatically. A Saturday barbecue could start in 80-degree sunshine and end with you scrambling indoors as temperatures drop 30 degrees overnight. For parents with children who play outdoor sports, keep an eye on the forecasts daily. Morning practices could start in the 20s and 30s, and afternoon games could be in the 70s. Dress in layers. Be ready for anything. And for everyone, please keep an eye on your local forecast between now and mid-April. The broad strokes that I have given you today are based on the best model data available right now. But the details will shift as we get closer to each event. Local forecasters will have the most precise timing and temperature predictions for your specific area. Let me also touch on what this means for travel over the next 2 weeks. If you are flying through Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, or any of the major Midwest and Northeast hubs, build extra time into your schedule next week. The combination of snow, freezing rain, and dramatic temperature swings is going to cause flight delays and cancellations. If you are driving through the Mountain West or the Pacific Northwest, mountain passes could be treacherous next week with heavy snow. If you are road tripping through the Great Plains this weekend, carry water and sun protection. The heat is going to be intense. And if you are heading through the same area next Thursday or Friday, have winter gear in the car because the Arctic blast could catch you off guard. One more thing I want to mention, the fire weather risk. I cannot stress this enough. When you have temperatures in the 90s and low 100s across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, combined with low humidity and strong winds, the fire danger is extreme. We have already seen what wildfires can do in these conditions. If you live in a rural area, clear brush away from your home. Have a go bag ready. Know your evacuation routes. Do not burn anything outdoors during this period. The red flag warnings that are already up across parts of the Southwest are likely to expand across the Southern Plains next week. Here is my final request. If you found value in this forecast, share it. Share it with your neighbors, your family, your co-workers. The more people who know what is coming, the better prepared we all are. And drop that comment with your city and state. I am already planning the next forecast, and I want to make sure your area is covered in detail. The next video is going to focus specifically on that Arctic blast arriving late next week with updated model data and more precise timing for every region. That is one you absolutely cannot miss because the models are still working out exactly how far south this cold pushes and how long it lasts. If it verifies on the stronger end, we could be talking about freeze warnings as far south as the Gulf Coast in late March. That would be extraordinary. Stay safe out there, stay informed. And I will see you in the next forecast where we dive deep into that Arctic blast that no one else is talking about yet. That one is going to be a must-watch. One of our viewers put it best yesterday. Jackets on, jackets off. You just do not know what to wear anymore. That is exactly what the next 2 weeks are going to feel like. But at least now you know when to grab the jacket and when to leave it behind. That is the power of being informed. That is the power of paying attention to the data instead of just stepping outside and guessing. I want to thank every single one of you who watches these forecasts. Your support makes it possible to keep delivering this level of detail. And if this is your first time here, welcome. This is what we do. Detailed, honest, no-nonsense weather forecasting for the people who actually need it. Not just pretty graphics and vague generalities. Real data, real timing, real preparation advice for real people living real lives across this incredible country. Remember, the biggest takeaway from today is this. Do not let the warm days fool you into thinking winter is over. The polar vortex has split. The cold air is coming multiple times. Through the end of March and well into April, be ready for it. And when that Arctic blast hits next Thursday, you are going to be glad you watched this forecast. Stay safe.